Good morning, everybody. I just did a Magnetic Morelli EFI to carb swap on my 98 Electroglide, and I thought I'd share a few tips and things that I learned along the way doing it. Maybe it'll help you in the future. There's a couple really good videos online that will go more in depth than what I'm going to go. This might be a good supplement to go with them. The first thing that I did was build my own wiring harness. If you're going to find one, you're going to find it on eBay or maybe for sale locally on Facebook or something. But it's going to be real hit or miss if that ever happens. I looked for months and months and months and I couldn't find one. I just took the schematic that's available online for this particular bike, and luckily it comes with the fuel injected harness schematic and the carbureted. I went off this. I bought a second injected harness off of eBay so that I could cut it up to make this. I left my initial one alone in case for some reason I ever had to go back in with it. Luckily, I don't have to. Anyhow, that's what I did. To make up on this end, on the module end, instead of cutting my module and hardwire and everything in, I bought a pre-wired Deutsch connector off of Amazon. And I wired that according to the numerical value that each one of them has back here where it belongs, according to the color. I disregarded the color on these. I documented everything in a book that I keep, everything I've done to it in case I ever have to sell it or somebody else has to work on it. God forbid either one of those things ever have to happen. But, you know, it is what it is. Excuse me. Another thing that I learned was the intake manifold. I went in, I used this S&S manifold, which I'm not saying anything bad about S&S because this is about the best of the best as far as I'm concerned. I'm sure there might be others that somebody else might recommend, but I bought this thinking that this was going to be perfect. Well, when I put it on with the carb and everything all set up, I set out about that far. And my leg hurt so bad trying to get on there just to get to the brake and the floorboard. And so I had to go back in with the stock pressure fit intake manifold that Harley Davidson put on these bikes from the factory. I might keep this around or sell. I don't know what I'll do with it, but keep it around just in case. But it's just not going to work for this application. I had a Mikuni carb that I was going to put on there. But the Mikuni carb that I had, it was a Screaming Eagle carb, and it did not allow for the use. It didn't have the adapter for cruise control. So if I'm going to have cruise on my bike, I want it to work. So I bought a CV carb, a Harley Davidson stock CV carb that allowed for the use of cruise control. And once I got all that set up, it went in perfect. It's not in the way anymore. Another thing that was not explained in some of the other videos is the internal stuff inside the tank and how to get it out. Once you drill the check balls on the underside of your tank from the outside, there's a really great video out there of a gentleman who drills that stuff out. And he kind of shows you what he did and how to drill it out. Well, on the inside, that stuff's not mentioned. Excuse me. Once you get all that drilled, your fuel line should separate from the internal bung that's welded in. And that bung is about, I don't know, maybe an inch high, maybe more. But most of that has to come off. Probably about 3/4 of an inch of it needs to come off, because if it doesn't, you're going to compromise your fuel capacity that you can use in here. You won't have a reserve at all. So if you do this, when you look in there, you'll see what I'm talking about. And so initially I was real concerned about how I'm going to get in there with my fat hands, because once you take all this off, there's very little room. And what I ended up having to do was go to Harbor Freight, and I bought this extended reach cutoff tool. I had to tape the trigger down so that it was always on. And what I ended up doing was I had the airline plugged in, and I just plumbed a valve in right here. And so when I stuck that in there, I could open that valve and hold it back here and by the valve to brace it. But you got to keep in mind, if you do something like this, you only, if you're going to zip it off in this manner like that, you only have about a half an inch, maybe less, on each side of this wheel. And if it bucks or kicks at all, you're going to hit the side of that, and you could possibly find yourself buying a new tank. What I did was, on top of that bung, which is probably a little bigger than my thumb, I just went back and forth over it until it was all gone. Until it was the same size of the Pingle conversion kit, or the same height rather. One thing that I would say, if you get this, you better have a big air compressor, because my air compressor would only run this for about 30 seconds at a time. Now granted, mine's pretty small. I only have a 3-gallon compressor. But the one, I went to work and used the air at the place where I work because it's constant. And it only took about 10 minutes. It went really well. But be damn careful when you put any kind of a cutting tool inside your fuel tank, and make sure it is dry with no fumes in it, please. But that's kind of the things that I learned. If this helps anybody, great. I hope it does. If somebody has any questions, if you're on the fence about doing this, do it. If we're all supposed to be a big biker brotherhood or community, then let's be exactly that. Help out the next guy coming along. I hope this helps somebody. Any questions, reach out. This was very simple. I'd love to help anybody that might have any questions for this. And without further ado, this is what it did. Thanks for watching. Be good to each other. If somebody needs help, let's help them. Everybody have a good day and keep your shiny side up.